Haibu Kaisuk, the major antagonist of Zetai Karen children and the main protagonist of the Infinite, lives in an unidentified land. He is the head of Pandra and the most powerful high-level multi-powered Esper who wishes to see Espers reclaim their rights under the leadership of Kaoru Akashi, whom he refers to as his queen. He surrenders to the military and is sent to an Esper jail. As Haibu arrives, he encounters Andy Hinomaya, an Esper prisoner who seems to be powerless. After causing a ruckus, both are taken to confinement, where Haibu offers Andy a chance to join his side, which he accepts in exchange for assisting him in escaping the jail. The chefs put a medicine in Haibu's stew during mealtime, but he delivers it to Andy instead. Andy is unable to fight back during a battle with another prisoner owing to the drug's influence. He falls after being repeatedly hit in the stomach. Andy awakens in a surgical room outside the jail and is liberated by Haibu, who informs him that the prison is being used for illegal Esper research. They arrive at the location where a young Esper kid, Ijiri, is being confined. The jail warden attacks them with a monster formed by uniting numerous Esper body parts, but it is destroyed when Haibu deactivates his own limiter, revealing his actual potential. In the end, Hyobu, Andy and Yujiri are picked up by the other members of Pandra and Andy is welcomed on board their headquarters of operations, the ocean liner Catastrophe. While he communicates with his superiors, Andy is revealed to be a spy intended to infiltrate the group. USCI investigator Hinomaya has been on board Pandra's ship, Catastrophe, for a week. The team discovers his capacity to nullify all ESP skills, as well as the fact that ESP users around him may have symptoms such as migraines, dizziness, or toothaches. Magi is skeptical of Hinomaya because of troubles in his history, and they can't read his thoughts with ESP. Pandra is to smuggle guns with a specific mafia lord, Carlo, who is a World War II buddy of Hyobu's. Hyobu is really rather old, but he utilizes his ESP powers to rejuvenate himself in order to maintain his youth. Pandra is ambushed by the Mafia with whom they were supposed to deal shortly after arrival. Despite this, Hyobu persists on paying a visit to Carlo. He tells Hinomaya to kill Carlo if he gives the signal, but he is unable to fire after giving the signal. Hyobu, having calculated this, exposes his disguised clones and kills Carlo, who is really a robotic decoy. Carlos is a very high-level Esper, but he is no match for Hyobu, who slaughters him immediately. Hyobu gives Hinomaya a limiter to decrease the effect of his abilities to negate ESP, which makes him susceptible to having his mind read. Magi tells Yujiri to read Hinomaya's mind, but Yujiri informs Magi that she will not read Hinomaya's mind unless Hyobu specifically orders her to. Meanwhile, Minamoto and Sakaki arrive at the Principality of Monarch. Minamoto and Sakaki attend a party held by the Princess of Monarch, Sophie Grace for Esper organizations from several countries where they spot Hyobu and some members of Pandra. After being confronted by the duo, Hyobu and his party flee undetected, and sometime later, it is revealed that Sophie is also missing. While Sakaki and Minamoto inquire the authorities and try to access the contents of a USB flash drive Sakaki snatched from Hyobu's pocket, Sophie is seen under custody of Pandra, but it is revealed that it is part of their plan to protect the princess from an assassination plot by Yujiri's request. As Sophie befriends Yujiri and decides to take her for a walk around the city while escorted by Andy, Hyobu makes use of mass hypnosis to have all women in the country seen by all around her as the princess, while feeding their enemies with false info about her whereabouts to lure them to a trap. Meanwhile, Sophie and Yujiri come at an abandoned orphanage where the princess remembers that she has met her before as one of the orphans being raised there before disappearing mysteriously. They are found by the ringleader behind the assassination plot, who wants to get rid of her because of her Esper protecting policy, but Minamoto, having previously deduced the enemy's identity upon analyzing the files, brings the police with him soon after. The criminal shoots at Sophie, but she is protected by Andy, who takes the hit at his shoulder, and Hyobu disarms him before he is arrested. Sophie offers herself to take care of Yujiri, but she rathers to keep living with Hyobu and the others instead, and bids farewell to her. As the catastrophe approaches the coast of Japan, Andy is searching the ship under his superior's orders when it is attacked by the members of BABEL, who send the children to infiltrate it. Hyobu confronts Kaoru by himself while Andy is detained by Aoi and Shiho, who steal the ship's master key from Momotaro and use it to hack the catastrophe's main computer. Once regrouped, the members of PANDRA start a counterattack, with Andy subduing Fujiko with his second Esper power, the ability to neutralize temporarily the powers of someone he touches, and destroying the hack's control while the rest of the group distracts the children. In a last effort to capture the catastrophe, Kaoru, Aoi, and Shiho combine their powers with their limiter's triple boost feature to restrain it, but they are repelled by Hyobu when he unlocks his own limiter, giving them the chance to escape. As Minamoto comforts the girls who are inconsolable for letting Hyobu escape, he ponders with Fujiko about an ominous precognition they learned regarding him. With the catastrophe undergoing repairs after their clash with the children, Andy is tasked by Magi, Momiji, and Yo to accompany Yujiri as they are summoned back. Meanwhile, Hyobu infiltrates a BABEL medical facility to perform some exams on his body in secret. While taking Yujiri to an amusement park, Andy is approached by Minamoto and Fujiko, who reveal to him that they know he is a spy under the US government infiltrated on PANDRA, and ask for his cooperation to apprehend them as Sakaki keeps watching Yujiri, who is exposed as an Esper after she uses her powers to help a lost boy. Feeling herself rejected by those around her, a desperate Yujiri loses control over her powers, igniting a disastrous hypnotic trance that is contained when Andy comes to help her. Soon after, their companions appear and bring them to safety. Back at the catastrophe, a birthday party is held to Hyobu, who hides from them the results of the exam he made, which indicate that he does not have much time left to live. This episode contains a brief background cameo of animated versions of the angry video game nerd and the nostalgia critic. As Andy reminisces about when he was recruited by the US government, he is informed by his superiors that the time has come for him to finish his assignment. Hyobu informs the others that their next mission is to steal a new ECM device developed in the United States. Andy then relays the info about the mission to BABEL, who agree to set a trap to PANDRA, although they decide to not take the children with them this time, despite Kaoru's protests. With Hyobu and the others cornered by Minamoto's team, Andy takes the opportunity to return to the catastrophe and accomplish his own mission, which is to extract the ship's main defense system, Ihachigo. Hyobu follows soon after, but is halted by Kaoru, who had just learned about a precognition regarding an impending destruction of the catastrophe. With his body showing signs of fatigue, Hyobu goes full force against Kaoru, knocking her unconscious, and finds Andy as he reaches Ihachigo's chambers. Revealing to Andy that he always knew he was a spy, Hyobu claims that now he has no option but to kill him. Several decades ago, a young Hyobu who had recently lost his father moves to live with Fujiko and her father in Japan. Sometime later, both Fujiko and Hyobu are asked by Captain Eiji Satomu to join a new Esper special unit created under the Japanese army. Fujiko declines despite Eiji's claim that the unit's purpose is not to help with Japan's invasion of other nations but to help with the country's defense, in spite of a similar initiative in development by the Third Reich, while Hyobu was instructed by his late father to refrain from using his powers to avoid being used as a living weapon. However, sometime later, both Hyobu and Fujiko accept the offer and join the army. Some months later, Hyobu and Fujiko get themselves involved in an incident with a naval officer, and the army discuss the possibility of having the Esper unit disbanded, but Eiji proposes a bet instead, with the incident being forgotten should they manage to defeat and combat the Japanese Navy's recently completed state-of-the-art fighter aircraft, the Zero. Eiji chooses Hyobu to represent the ESP unit in the duel with the Navy fighter, but the words of his father that he should refrain from using his powers keep haunting him as he trains for the upcoming match. In the day of the duel, it is revealed that the pilot representing the Navy is the same one involved in the incident. Hyobu finds himself in a pinch against the enemy until he finally manages to overcome his fear and wins the duel by a direct paint shot in the cockpit. Soon after, a U.S. submarine is seen pursuing 3 dolphins who contact Hyobu and the others through ESP asking for their help, just before one of the dolphins is killed by a torpedo. With the Navy fighters' help, the ESP unit managed to save the other 2 and shake off the pursuers. However, the dolphins warn Hyobu about an ominous fate awaiting him and his companions. Years later, just after the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, Eiji informs Hyobu that Japan is about to surrender and most of the ESP unit is dead. However, by using the brain of a Hachigo, one of the dolphins, Eiji has a precognition that Hyobu will bring destruction to the world in the future and decides to dispose of him. Eiji fires thrice on him, 1 bullet to the head, but Hyobu manages to survive and strikes back, apparently killing him, and leaves swearing vengeance on the normals who betrayed him and his friends. Back to the present, Andy uses his powers to deactivate a Hachigo's cloaking system, exposing the catastrophe to an attack by the US military. While confronting Magi and the others, Minamoto learns about the situation and reveals that BABL's true intention was to apprehend Pandra to prevent the attack and allows them to leave and help Hyobu and the others. With Hyobu busy confronting dozens of combat drones sent by the US Army, a task force invades the ship and captures Yujiri. Andy tries to stop them from taking her away, but his superior shoots him instead and leaves with both Yujiri and a Hachigo in his possession. Andy awakens soon after, just to find he is unscathed as his limiter stopped the bullet. Meanwhile, Hyobu feels his body failing away, and unlocks his powers to destroy the invading fleet in one fell swoop before losing consciousness, but the catastrophe ends up taking one last shot before it's sunk, with everyone aboard having already evacuated the ship except for Hyobu and Andy. Andy saves Hyobu from drowning and the 2 are rescued by BABL. Fujiko and Sakaki take Hyobu to the Tsubomi estate to treat him, while Oboro has the transmitter chip from the US extracted from Andy's body and destroyed with the children's help. By Keiru's request, Shiho restrains Abaru and learns Hyobu's location from her. Andy convinces the girls to take him with them, and upon arriving at the mansion, Hyobu asks him about the man who contacted them aboard the catastrophe, confirming his suspicions that said man is none other than Eiji Satomu himself, who somehow is still alive. Meanwhile, Sakaki reveals to the girls that Hyobu is dying, and to save his life, Keiru offers herself for a blood transfusion. Now in possession of both Yujiri and a Hachigo, Eiji plans to use both to avert the Esper revolution led by Keiru and Hyobu set to occur in the near future. Sometime later, despite still not fully recovered, Hyobu leaves by himself despite Keiru's pleas and accepts Andy's offer to accompany him. The 2 then depart to confront Eiji and rescue Yujiri. Upon arriving at home, Andy's former contact in the USEI is held into custody by him with Hyobu's help and is forced to take them to the facility where Yujiri is being held. However, the agent manages to warn his companions about them in secret, and the 2 arrive there just to find that Yujiri is not there anymore, and after a brief conversation with Eiji, who reveals to them his intention to use her to kill Keiru, the 2 find themselves in an ambush. Andy and Hyobu fight to escape until they are cornered by the enemy, just to be rescued in time by Magi and the others. Once again reunited, the members of Pandra set to New York, as Hyobu realizes that Eiji's next target is Norman Green, the newly elected mayor who is a supporter of Esper protection policies. Somehow put under some kind of trance, Yujiri defeats Magi, Momiji, and Yo before she comes across Andy. Andy follows Yujiri to the site of Green's inauguration but is restrained by the police, just to be rescued by Minamoto and Sakaki, who reveal to him that they are working with Liberty Bell to stop Eiji's conspiracy to have the new mayor assassinated by an Esper and alter the future. Yujiri attacks Green, just to be stopped by Andy, and she launches a hypnotic trance that afflicts everyone in the area except Andy and his allies, starting a riot. As the riot spreads through the city, Hyobu confronts Yujiri to free her mind, but her hypnosis makes him confront delusions of his past, until he unlocks his powers, knowing that with his body's condition, this may end up killing him. Hyobu succeeds to rescue Yujiri, but his powers go haywire and he asks Andy to take her away before they destroy him. However, Andy refuses to flee and uses his ability to restrain Hyobu's powers and save his life. As the members of BABL return home and are greeted by Kaoru and the others, Hyobu finally comes face to face with Eiji. With the rest of his cohorts already in custody, Eiji asks Hyobu to kill him, but he refuses to do so and decides to punish him by erasing all his memories instead. Andy decides to find his own way in life and bids farewell to Yujiri and the others from Pandra, leaving to parts unknown after having a short meeting with Hyobu.